What's going on, YouTube? What's going on, man? What's going on? How are you guys doing, man? It's been a while. Let me know if you guys can hear me. Oh man, I gotta let's see. I'll make sure my stuff works. I haven't done this in a long, long time. Anyway, so what's been happening? I wasn't feeling too well, and when I recovered, I went on vacation. And this was a crazy vacation, by the way, which I'm going to tell you the story another day. But anyway, before we get to that story, I've been following the Julio Foolio trial. I've watched literally the entire thing. I may have missed a day or two here and there, but I've been watching it. But I've been watching it from a different perspective. I've not been looking at this as like your typical gang gun violence YN type of BS. I've been looking at it from a parenting standpoint. It's something that really strikes me, especially this young man, Sean Gathright. His story was very strange. I'm going to play a little clip of it just to give you an idea. We're not going to get into the whole thing. But the reason I figured that his story was worth scrutinizing or at least looking at is he had a very unique background. The other three guys, Isaiah Chance, Rashad Murphy, and there's another Murphy. There's two Murphy brothers. Those three guys were gang members. They were destined to end up like this anyway. Their backgrounds were pretty rough, especially the other, what is his name? The other Murphy had a parent that is already, his dad is already serving a life sentence. So life just wasn't going to end up well for him. So I understand his part. Usually when you grow up in a certain environment, your outcomes are pretty determined. But the one that really struck me was this guy. I'm going to get to, if you have not followed the story, this guy had that upbringing that you'd call suburban, typical guy that went to private middle school, was traveling the world, went to South Africa, went all over Europe, had a very caring mom, but he fell out. His dad left at a certain age, and he only had role models and counselors, but he didn't really have a father figure, which really made him prone to peer pressure, trying to fit in. And how he ended up like this is it's sad in a way, but he's also brutal, and it scares me. It should scare anybody that is a parent, really, because you can do all the things right and you're still gonna have a child like Sean Gathright. Let me play a little bit of the clip from today's testimony, and we'll break it down as we get through it. I hope you guys are all doing well. Let me know in the chat if you can hear me.
Thank you, Your Honor. Please state your name for the record, sir, and spell your name for our court reporter.
My name's Sean Gathright, SeanGathright.
What's your date of birth, sir?
I was born on October 20th, 2005.
Mr. Gathright, you've heard people speak here today on your behalf and yesterday, and
So he did this when he was 18 years old. That's how young he was, man. Salute to you, Sagat.
I know that you wanted to address the court and the jury, so I would like to ask you what you want the jury to know.
Yeah. I just want to address the court today, and, I'm not here to dispute anything. I'm just here to be a man and take responsibility. And
So I'm wondering why they didn't take the plea deal, or whether maybe it wasn't offered. I don't know how this works in Florida, but typically when there's that much evidence, because this was really, really stacked against them, and you're gonna use a public defender, I think it's only right that you try and get a plea deal, save yourself the trial, and also the fact that they tried all of them together really didn't give them any chance really to separate themselves unless they snitched, which is really not street culture to do. So these guys were cooked from the very start of the case, and this is the worst of them. This is the guy that did the shooting. It looks like he may have attempted to he shot Julio a year prior, so he had attempted to kill him before, and he went back and did it. So obviously, the reason he's on the stand is he's trying to not get the death penalty. But if you really follow the case and if you notice just how calculated and evil these kids were, I think personally, I think they should all get the death penalty. I think that's what they're going to get. It's Florida. I have always held the belief that if you kill somebody, you should be killed. There should be no reason why you should be living on the taxpayers' dime. And this should be a lesson to the young kids that are like suburban kids that are not really, don't have the background of somebody from the hood. This is not the life you want to live. There's only two outcomes with the street life. You're either going to go to jail and mostly spend the rest of your life in jail or be in and out of jail, or you're just going to get killed. Like the Jacksonville gang violence has pretty much claimed all lives except for Young Inez, who is an up-and-coming rapper who used to be the opposing rapper to Foolio. I think he's from the 6th Street gang, and then these guys were 1200. It's this gang thing for these young kids. Black folks just need to figure out a way to get away from this shit, man. It's not cool. You know, if you're pleading for your life to be spared, and only a few months ago you're excited for killing, then what is the point? I thought people that did this were already willing to die, right? And here's a young man that got the trips to Europe and got to do very special things that most suburban kids are privileged to get, and yet he just blows his life away like that. It's This should be a case study of how not to fuck up.
Express my feelings about this whole situation. That's what I plan on doing.
Okay. And how do you feel? What?
I feel very remorseful. This is a terrible situation. It's been a traumatic experience.
So I gotta agree. The neighborhood is one thing. I think this kid when he went to high school, he went back to Jacksonville. When he went to Jacksonville, that is when he went to a regular high school that had these dudes. He wasn't really a gang member, but he hung out with Isaiah Chance, who was a really serious gang member. So this is what got him involved in this. I heard this guy was just playing Call of Duty and just wanted to kill people. That's all he was known for. He just wanted to be known as a guy that can just kill, He got away with the first gunshot. So he may have been emboldened that this time it was going to be different. I was like, bro, come on, man. What a way to waste your life,
Let me ask you this. So, how old were you when you were arrested?
I was 18 years old.
We heard that you had started some college. Obviously, probably didn't get very far, right?
I saw on Reddit that this guy, he moved to Mississippi after middle school. I saw on Reddit that he may have killed somebody in Mississippi, an unsolved murder. He returned to Jacksonville, and he may have just, how they keep a body count of how many guys they've killed. He returns to Jacksonville and tries to do the same thing again, right? Crazy, man.
Right.
What have you done since you've been in jail? Is there programs? Are there things that you can do there?
So, I've gotten.
I'm going to skip this part because this is his defense attorneys trying to soften his image to give, the jury, because the jury in Florida convicts. And I think they only need 8 to convict, to sentence him to get recommended death sentence, which I think he's going to get. Like these kids, all 4 of them are going to get a death sentence. Now, is there a chance he was a mastermind behind this, but he's a guy that was a lookout and he didn't shoot? So I thought he was gonna get manslaughter. I feel if he had a separate trial, he would have gotten manslaughter, like his girlfriend Alicia or whatever. But because they were all put together and he was part of the entire plan and he actually masterminded it, he also gets a death penalty, even though he didn't pull a trigger. Okay, so this is the part that I want to listen to the cross. I think that's the better part.
Yes, sir.
26, right?
Yes, sir.
That's what the evidence showed us, correct? You were sitting here watching that, correct? The evidence that came in over the last several weeks?
I was right there.
Yeah. And you want to take accountability now, correct? You want to take accountability now that this jury has found you guilty, correct?
Yes, sir.
Weeks after we went through a trial. Is that your testimony?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'm going to sustain the objection.
You indicated this was a traumatic experience. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
That's what you just testified to, correct?
That's what I said.
Let me just have one moment, Your Honor. I'm trying to get the all-know.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Stage 25C, you remember Gino Norris?
Yes, sir.
You remember him? He was also really young when this happened, wasn't he?
I didn't know how old he was.
Early 20s, 22. Would that surprise you?
No, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. Gino Norris, who's not a gang member, who's Charles Jones' friend from the time they're children.
That's the legal basis.
In the back of the case,
Okay. Come on up, counsel.
Yeah, so there was two other people that were in a vehicle with Foolio, and both of them got injured pretty bad. Some of the gunshots also went through the hotel. I think the ones from Rashad Murphy were projected to have gone through the hotel rooms of some people that were sleeping with their families in the hotel room. They didn't get injured, but that's just how reckless these guys were, man. They fired like probably hundreds of rounds because there was three guys shooting, just spraying randomly, you know, and now they're turning back and they don't want a death penalty. Like, why? Now, Folio, to these guys' argument, he wasn't the cleanest person in the book either. He did some nasty music. He may have killed, but never been convicted of anything. But he was just like the Chicago guy. I've forgotten the name of that Chicago rapper. But these are drill rappers, I guess is what they call them, and they do some of the most ridiculous music. I don't know why people are even subscribed to this kind of music. But music aside and drill rap aside, the biggest conversation to be had here is one thing again that I noticed across that whole trial. In the stands, like, when your relatives come to the court and they come there and watch the proceedings, all I saw was women. It was just black women, cousins, relatives. A couple times I seen maybe 2 or 3 dudes, but they were uncles. There was no image of fathers in all 4 cases. And then 6 months ago, when they did that Alicia trial, she also didn't have a father present. So all these guys are growing up without fathers. Now the question is, where are the fathers, man? Where are all these black dudes that go on the internet and talk the big talk? But whenever we get through cases like this, there are no fathers. Where did they go? Are they all in jail? Is this a smaller group? Is this a small subset and we cannot generalize that these are like the numbers across the board? I'm not partaking in the diaspora war here. I'm just asking very serious questions. Like, how come none of these 4 kids, completely diverse backgrounds, the other 3 were already cooked because of their upbringing. The one guy, one of the other Murphys, his father was already in prison serving life for probably killing somebody. So I understand that he was cooked from start. This guy had a middle-class upbringing. He was going on overseas trips. He went to London, Paris, Spain. even went to China and Japan. His parents were military folks and even retired in the military. So he had lived a decent life, and he went over to even South Africa with a mentor. They put him up on the path to success, and just between the ages of 16 and 17, he just goes on this dark path. I don't even think he will last in prison. He's not a thug, man. He's not gonna make it out there, I guess the judge is just giving them some instructions as a prosecution right there. So yeah, they kill Foolio and then they celebrate with Don Julio. That's it. That was the reward. What are you gonna get out of this? Like, what sense does it make? Like, I know he makes horrible music and he's a dirty person himself, but this whole gang thing, he said, well, for street credit, what is that street credit gonna do for you? Is it gonna pay your bills? Are you gonna make some money in the future with this? I mean, I know these rappers were making money, but why don't you channel that energy into making music and not just killing people? That's the part I don't understand, man.
C, Xavier Edwards. 25C, Gino Norris. And you saw the autopsy photos of Charles Jones. My question to you is, after you and your friends inflicted that carnage on June 23rd, and as you were running States 2059C, this is actually you running to shoot them, but when you were running back past that Tesla, were you feeling a lot of trauma at that point?
It was so long ago, I try to not remember anything from that night.
Were you remorseful as you were running back with that AR-15 in your hands?
Like I said, I try to remember nothing from that night.
Was it traumatic to you as you went back to the car with that AR-15? Was it still smoking? Was it still warm in your hands from firing it?
Sustain the objection.
Were you feeling remorse as you were getting back into the Impala?
Like I said, I just try to focus on today and moving forward.
So the next day, that Impala, that was your car. You drove that around, right? It was your mom's, but you drove that car, correct?
Yes, sir. It was my mother's car.
Right. And that was the car you drove from Jacksonville to Tampa in, correct?
I'm going to object beyond scope.
I'm working to a point, Your Honor.
Okay, why don't we just get there?
All right. So this car, this Impala that you drove from Jacksonville to Tampa in with Mr. Chance and Miss Andrews, the one that you drove in tandem with the Silver Cruise, the same car that you utilized to drive the assault team, the shooting team, which you were a part of that night, that same car that you drove around Tampa in the early morning hours for several hours, tracking, stalking, and hunting Charles Jones and his entourage.
Sustain.
That same Impala, you drove that to Polk County the next day, and you dropped it at your grandmother's house, right? The same grandmother who came in here last night and testified for you, correct?
Overruled. Go ahead. You can answer that question.
Isn't that correct?
What is the question?
You dropped the Impala, the one that had all of these shooters in it, the one that was utilized in this murder, that was such a vital cog in this plan. You dropped it at your grandmother's house in Auburndale, didn't you?
I'm here to testify about today.
Are you going to answer that question, or are you going to avoid it? Because that's not what I asked what you were doing here today. I think we all understand what you're here to do today, what you're testifying about. I'm asking you specifically about your remorse. Were you remorseful when you dropped that car off and left it at your grandmother's house in Auburndale?
I did go to my grandmother's house.
Were you feeling remorse when you hugged her and got into the 4Runner and left her with the Impala after you wiped it down?
Sir, I'm just telling you that today I would like to express my remorse to the family and to the court.
I understand what you're trying to do today. I'm asking you, since you're trying to convince this jury that you're remorseful, were you feeling remorse that next day or later that day?
I don't remember these days in detail, how I was feeling, what I was thinking.
What about later that night when you went to Orlando? Were you feeling remorse when you were out partying at Club Parlay, celebrating what you had done that day?
That was my sister's birthday party.
What did you feel any remorse while you were drinking Don Julio tequila and putting that in your video and throwing gang signs?
Is Don Julio really good? I've never had it. Let me know in the chat. Is it good? Is Don Julio good? Because they seem to all be drinking Don Julio. What's up, Nanza? They seem to be all drinking Don Julio. Is it that great? Is it good? I'm not really a tequila fan, but if it's good, I'll test it out, man. As long as it won't make me a gang member.
I'm here
Did you
to
feel remorse
testify
then?
about today, sir. We've all seen the evidence. We've all reviewed everything.
Mr. Chance, it's not time for you now to make speeches. You've politely answered your counsel's questions. Can you not answer the state's questions? Is there something about my question you don't understand?
I was getting to.
I'm sorry,
Mr.
Mr. Gafford. I called you Mr. Chance. Excuse me.
I was getting to my answer. Like I said, I've seen all the evidence.
See, of all of them, this guy was the most ruthless of all of them. But he's also the one that cried when the judgment came down. And he's the one that is really, really scared. Or when the verdict came down, not the judgment, when the verdict came down. And he seems to be very, very scared of prison, right? So, I don't know. I mean, either way, he's going to spend the rest of his life in prison. Florida, I looked it up. Florida has like a backlog of the death row things. So it takes them about 20 years to execute. So they'll probably execute him when he's like in his 40s. Nobody will probably remember this case then, you know. But here in Texas, he would probably get it in 6 years. Usually 6 to 10 years, they execute them here in Texas.
Well, we've all seen all the evidence,
Yes,
right?
sir. That's true.
And after all that evidence came in, and this jury based their true verdict on that, convicting you, now you're taking accountability? Is that correct?
Sustain the objection. I think the question on the table was remorse about Orlando. Okay?
It is, Your Honor.
You just need to answer that question.
So I'm going to ask you very specifically, okay? So try to focus with a laser beam here, Mr. Gathright. Were you feeling remorse when you were in Club Parlay in Orlando drinking Don Julio? Were you feeling remorse for what you did earlier that day?
I don't remember how I was feeling or what I was thinking.
Were you feeling remorse when you got pulled over in the Forerunner a couple of days later by the police?
I don't remember. I was nervous. I mean, I had never been involved in any.
So one of the Murphy brothers, they actually admit that he's retarded and that they use the word low IQ, you know. It's very sensitive when a white guy says a black person has low IQ, but his attorneys put it out there that he has low IQ and he really was a horrible student. And that's the kid that was making the shooting signs during that interrogation. And I was thinking they were going to go for the insanity defense, but they didn't. They just went for the he wasn't there defense. And that really, these guys were caught on camera from start to finish. Even his own house's camera is what really put this away. So everything was on camera, man. These guys were caught easily. They didn't really run that far. They just, I don't see that when you're young, your brain hasn't really developed to a certain extent. When you do these kind of crimes, there's almost a high possibility that you're gonna get caught, especially nowadays with all the technology and cameras out there. So I think a lot of this gang life should just end. You know, it's embarrassing to black people, man. Like why are we this violent? I don't want to put myself in this shit, but you know, but like why are black people this violent, man? This shit has to stop, bro.
Were you feeling remorse when you were unloading the Impala and putting all of that evidence into the Forerunner? Did you feel remorse?
Sir, I told you I don't remember how I was feeling or what I was thinking in those days.
Mr. Gathright, you have led, you would agree with me, an extremely privileged life, haven't you?
Yes, sir.
You would agree with that, correct?
I would.
You've had a loving mother, correct?
Yes, sir.
A loving sister, correct?
Yes, sir.
You've had 2 wonderful grandmothers, correct?
Yes, sir.
You would agree with me, right?
I couldn't deny that.
One of which, probably, I'm assuming, sacrificed and paid for you to go to that private school, that preparatory school, correct?
It wasn't paid. It was a magnet program, so I had to apply, and it was a lottery system.
It was a lottery system. Okay, so it was a magnet.
Yes, sir.
All right. She supported you going there, did she not?
Everybody did.
Gave
Yes,
you open use of her house, welcomed you, treated you, and parented you, basically, didn't she?
Yes, sir.
Took care of you when your parents were deployed, correct?
Yes, sir. At the time, I was living with my grandmother. Both of my parents had been either retired or out of the military. I was just living there more so. I needed a change of scenery, and
How do you let your kids go live with your grandparents just for a change of scenery, especially at that young adolescent age where you're supposed to really monitor them and keep your eyes on them? I don't understand this thing culturally, bro. You know, I don't understand. I don't understand this thing culturally. Like, why? How do you just go live with your? I can understand going on holidays and chilling at your grandma's house, but like, what would make you leave your parents' house to go live with your grandparents? I don't get it. You know.
relationship with my father wasn't sustainable.
Okay. This is when you're in Oxford with your grandmother.
Yes, sir.
The nice lady we saw earlier came in here.
Yes, sir.
The one that has supported you and spoke so lovingly about you, correct?
Yes, sir.
And so you went to this preparatory school, and whether you got in there through a lottery or not, you would agree with me, not everybody gets to go to a school like that, correct?
The lottery school, the magnet school I went to was in middle school when I was living in Jacksonville. The school I went to in Oxford, it was just a public high school.
A public high school.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
my mistake. So you went to that preparatory school in Jacksonville.
Yes, sir.
But again, that school was not something that every kid gets to go to, right?
No, sir.
Not every kid gets to have a counselor and a role model like Mr. Edwards, correct?
No, sir. I was very blessed.
And not many children get to fly in planes with their stepfather, correct?
No, sir.
And fly around in Asia and get to see islands off the coast of Okinawa, correct?
No, sir. I was
To go on
very
camp-
blessed.
You are very blessed, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
And not every kid gets to go to Scotland, right?
No, sir.
Or Ireland,
No, sir.
or Paris,
No, sir.
or London,
No, sir.
or Spain,
No, sir.
Yeah.
Cape Town, or Johannesburg, or both in South Africa.
Cape Town.
Cape Town, beautiful city, right? You got to go experience that when you were growing up, correct?
I did.
Because you had such loving people around you supporting you, correct?
Yes, sir.
In fact, your grandmother went with you on that trip, did she not? Or not on that one, but on the ones to
Several
Europe,
trips.
correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And we heard you got to meet up with your sister in one of those trips, correct?
I did. I had the privilege.
So you always had someone there taking care of you, and you always had good.
Yeah, but to his defense, he had everything, but he lost the influence of his dad at the stage of a boy's age, where I think it's very critical to be around your dad. And this is one of my biggest shots, at black women. And it may sound a bit red pillish, but I've always said that this whole single mother bullshit, which the family courts has played a bigger role in this, is the reason why we have these outcomes. Unless they adjust, these family court systems disincentivize the idea that women can just walk away from their commitment to themselves, their spouses, and their children. None of this is going to change. This is one of the things, like, the more we deviate from our traditional values and how we were brought up to, like, how life was set up for us to live, I don't think we have a chance with the outcomes that some of these children are going to have. They are all going to end up like this some way or the other. Or some more violent than others. Some may not be violent at all, but they will still live with certain traumas. They may not achieve they may not reach their goals, is what I think is going to happen here. And this notion of being raised by one parent, I think with men it's even better. If you're going to be raised by one parent, it just has to be the dad. That's the only way it works. But if it's just a mom and some grannies and just a bunch of women around, all these boys will have a lot of issues. Some guys might make it out of it depending on their circle and their influence. But like in sub-Saharan Africa, at least we have boarding schools, so some boys can go to the boarding school and they'll get straightened out by just being in an institutional setup, and that will kind of erase some of the possible traumas. But over here in the West, that's not the case. These guys have to figure it out. They're easily influenced by friends. If this guy didn't run into Isaiah Chance, there's no way he ends up like this. The only reason this happens is he became friends with Isaiah Chance. And he even had access to his house. He could just put the keys in and just go into his house in and out anytime. that is a guy that has destroyed this guy's life, and this happens only due to the fact that there was no father in the picture. This is why I say I look at this as a big crisis, man. If these men don't, if these family court systems are not uh, worked on, and if women don't start having an understanding that they need to prioritize their children, and forgo all the stupid feelings that they get, and make it a priority to work with the men in their lives to make this happen. It's not gonna work out, bro. And bullshit to this whole concept of co-parenting. You have the child for 1 week, then I have the child for another week. It never works out, man. You can't be playing table tennis with parenting. Like, oh, you have them for 2 weeks, I have them for 2 weeks. You have them for 1 week, I have them for 1 week. We take turns every Christmas. That's years and years and years of trauma that you're inflicting on these young boys, and they really cannot express themselves. So what's going to happen is eventually they fail. This is a classic example of a child that had a full suburban upbringing and has just ended up blowing it. But you guys get the point. That's the only part that I want to talk about. I'm going to grab my story number 2 here and I'll wrap this up. I'm still crawling back with work. So I have a lot of work on the side that I'm working on. Some of my late summer projects are behind schedule, so I'm also working through that. So my presence on YouTube is going to be a little bit diminished, but I'll try my best to put out content from time to time while I get caught up. Hopefully by next week I should be really, really caught up, and then I'll get my stories more lined up. One of the stories I wanted to look at was from this article today. It's not from today. I think it was from 2 days ago. But I don't have the Wall Street Journal subscription, so I did a ChatGPT summary of it that I'm going to play here and show you here in a bit. But I saw this article that says that a changing job market leans against men, okay? And then industries that heavily employ men are losing jobs, and the share of men working has flatlined. Now, here's why this is very concerning. Back to the same, connecting this to the story that we just covered. If men are losing their ability to earn money and to work, crime is going to go up. Homicides are going to go up. Abuse in relationships are going to go up. A lot of these men are going to get incarcerated. A lot of these men, and this is across racial groups, not particularly black people. This is all men. This is all men. It also gonna heavily see whenever they came up with rules or programs to empower women to go to school and to get jobs. I think they overcorrected, and with the rise of AI and machines coming into place, even in construction, there's a lot of technology that has been added to some of these physical jobs and machines and equipment. You find that the job that was done by 20 men is now done by one crane and one crane operator, right? So the traditional jobs that men used to have, especially blue collar jobs, these jobs are going away. A lot of them will never come back. And if you have a bunch of non-working men, that means men that don't have jobs typically don't get mates. Like the women don't want to have sex with men that don't have jobs. All right. Hypergamy is definitely a real thing. So this is going to be very concerning for relationships, for people's ability to get married and have children and raise children, for them to be able to maintain respect in a relationship, because really at the core of most relationships is that men really desire and require a lot of respect, and if women are not going to respect men that don't have jobs or men that cannot provide, that is going to be very, very difficult for men in the West. Okay, now this trend is not particularly too difficult for developing countries in sub-Saharan Africa. It's shifting, but it's not as prevalent. A lot of the men control most of that economies south of the hemisphere. But over here, I think the scales have tipped. And I know that from my own experience. You guys know, I work in corporate. and there's more women on my team than there is men. So that has been the case for the last 5 years. So I've seen that trend even shifting in technical IT corporate roles. Some women have taken on, most of the time they're just managers or project managers. They're not really doing any coding, but they found a way to get into these spaces too, and they are dominating in these spaces. That if you're a guy and you're looking at this, you want to ask yourself, what do I do, right? Like, because now, like, if you look here, this is a cumulative change in non-farm jobs since December 2024. This is again the light blue map here, a line here is just how much accelerated the jobs have been held by women over this 2-year stretch. Look at this. Look at it for men. Men were losing jobs, gained a little bit to kind of flatten it out. Went a little bit over here, maybe about 20,000 jobs gained, and then lost 100,000. Little gains, little corrections, but deep, steep losses. Okay, and we're back to pretty much even to where we started a year ago. So you lost so much, and then you're back up to the zero line. And look at the spread between the top end of the women's scale, 400,000 net job gain versus men sitting right about maybe zero, really, at this point. Quantify as 1,000, so you can just take this as 1,000 line. This is sad. And where is the jobs? Most of the net job gains are in healthcare, in social assistance, and most men are not into these areas. So if you're watching me and you're asking, well, how do you can men get into some of these healthcare and social assistance spaces? I think there is still opportunity for men to get into these spaces. You can always be a medical doctor, right? You can always be a nurse or whatever other things. I'm not, I work in pharma, but not healthcare. So I don't know what the other job roles are that men can tap into. But a few years ago, one of the things that I used to do is I'd always look at the BLS report and have an insight in where most of the jobs were, like the trends of where the job market was going. And I would ask myself, what can I do to adjust or tweak what I currently have to make myself stay relevant with the changes that happens in jobs. The reason I really wanted to cover this story was I noticed that most of the times people get very comfortable when when you're working. You get so comfortable that you don't. Let me move this away. You get so comfortable that you don't really look at the trends of jobs. Okay, this is not the article I was looking for. Where is it? Okay, here it is. Yeah, you get so comfortable that sometimes you don't look at the trends and what you need to adjust. And we're all guilty of it. Like, oh, nothing's gonna happen. Nothing's gonna happen. I got the job. I'm good. But where is the PDF? I think we should all be very careful. Right here. I'm trying to share that screen so y'all can see it. I've been so rusty for not being on for too long. Is this it? No. Right here. Okay, now we gotta scale this so that you guys can see it. Maximize. Okay, so this is a lot better. So I did a summary of this. It says most new jobs are going to female-dominated industries, which we just covered. Male-dominated sectors are losing jobs. Men's workforce participation continues to decline. So right here it says what The article emphasizes the decline in the employment to population ratio among men. Statistics cited approximately 70% in the 1990s, approximately 66% in 2019, and approximately 64%. So that's a rapid decline, more than 10, close to 10% in in about 20 years. So it's not overly concerning in terms of the decline and the correction. But what is more concerned is the expansion on the women's side and the need to close the gap. It looks like a very easy way to close some of these gaps is to just get some education, right? Because obviously, this is still very true that about 46% of women ages 25 to 54 hold bachelor's degrees, 38% of men ages 25 to 54. So that educate the bridging that education gap may help out a little bit. And I think if you already have a bachelor's degree, like I've said over the years, I think a master's degree is the icing on the cake. Usually that will separate yourself from the competition. But healthcare and healthcare support roles, healthcare technology roles, those are always safe areas and safe bets. And here they talk about AI and automation. But I think a lot of the AI damage has already been baked in. I wouldn't be too worried about artificial intelligence right now. What I would say is try to get exposed to it, understand how to use it, and just be aware of it. A lot of people don't just use it for content, but use it in a way that can maybe help with productivity in whatever you're doing currently. There's always something that you can do with AI in your current roles. So yep. And finally, this one I'm gonna talk about it briefly. The Chud the Builder, or whatever they call it again. Chuck the Builder. Let me change my screen so y'all can get to that. I'm not gonna play any of his videos because I think it's ridiculous. But as usual, I have a different take, right? I always have a different take. And it's not extreme. But here's the thing. Here are two things that I've always said. If black folks continue to use the N-word, they're going to normalize it to where a time will come, depending on the political climate, all the other groups will feel comfortable using it. The same way they used to give Latinos a pass. I don't know if you guys remember. When I first moved to the U.S., they used to say, oh, the Latino guys can say the N-word. And then very later on, the Filipinos in Stockton, California, were also being able to say the N-word, And so they were given passes. And sometimes they say, well, this white guy can say it because he's our G. Like, we roll with this guy, right? So they give passes, and they give passes to certain people, which doesn't make the situation uniform. I think the best approach is for black folks to now accept that if the word is so derogatory, then we should not be comfortable saying it ourselves. I don't use it. I'd rather say ninja or whatever, but even that, it's not really in my vocabulary. I think we should start moving away from normalizing it to where people are just going to say it. Now, on his part, I do think that it's still free speech and he can say it, but free speech doesn't exempt you from people looking at you and noticing that what your character is. So you have to take the fall that comes with behaving a certain way. And people like this, they will probably never get a job, right? They will never be employed. They don't really think about this when they do things like that, but they'll probably never get a job. If the funds run out, the people that are funding this temporarily because it's funny, like every grift, that's going to run out. And if you've run something this racist and this open and this disrespectful and that everybody is aware of and everybody knows you're limiting for the rest of your life. And I think he's not even that old. He's limiting his ability and his opportunities to even be able to find a job sometime in future, and he might struggle to even pay his bills. Also, a lot of that content he makes has gotten him kicked off the internet in terms of monetized pages. And he's doing now other platforms that are like behind the paywall or something. If these are public cloud servers that are being used, I have a feeling very soon platforms like Google Cloud or Azure from Microsoft or Amazon's AWS might just deplatform it altogether, and he would just have no access to even publish this stuff. So what he's doing is not economically sustainable long term, but I also think that black folks are also overreacting. I don't think this is so relevant. See, I always like the racism that is in my face versus the one that is subtle and nobody even knows goes on and people just keep it within them. At least this guy says he doesn't like you. He's out there in the open. All these creators are making content about it, trying to make money off of it, and some are also threatening him. I don't think anybody should do anything to him because people like this, whatever happens to them, you'd be inciting some race wars or race riots. You might escalate the situation, and you're also gonna let people think that you're thin-skinned. I mean, I know a lot of these folks are thin-skinned, but you're gonna let people know that you're really thin-skinned about these issues. But frankly, this guy is not even relevant. He doesn't make any policy. He doesn't shape any policy. I think the best way is to disengage. Don't platform him. Don't make any videos about him. I probably will never make any more videos. This is the only video I've made about this topic, and I probably won't make any more videos about this shit, right? And I think everybody should do the same. But as usual, these guys all want to make money. Academics is making videos about it. He wants to make money. O'Shea is making videos. He wants to make money. You cannot make money off a situation like this. You should not be wanting to make money off a situation like this. The guy is a moron, okay? He's a moron. He's an idiot. I know Flacco's been making like 10 videos a day about the same dude. Like, geez, what are you going to say that is different? He's racist. That's it. Leave it alone. And no, don't make videos trying to tell some Wyans to do something to him, because that means you've lost. If you attack this guy, you hurt him, you've lost. He's only saying the N-word, and he's using words like chimp out to mean black people. And he's doing it in public spaces. But so what? Some people do it at the dinner table. They don't tell you about it, right? At least he's telling you to your face. Just avoid him. Avoid him. Don't make videos about him. Don't platform him. If all these guys, O'Shea, academics, Flacco, if they didn't make videos, all of last week, I didn't know who the fuck this guy was. So you are pushing his, and he's not on YouTube, but whenever you play his clips and reaction videos on YouTube, then you're making him even more popular. You're making more people more curious about him. And, in the age of information where everybody's on the internet, there's like millions of white folks that don't agree with this idiot either. So this is not a very popular stance to take in modern day America. Nobody's going to hire this guy ever, right? Nobody's going to hire him. No advertisers are going to want their videos showing him. Nobody, I mean, which advertising company would want to run something of this guy? They are not going to do that, right? No advertising company wants their image around this guy. So I give people like this usually about 6 months. The funds will run out. The fun of this bullshit, that is bullshit exercises, will run out, and eventually goes away. So, for black folks in America, here's an opportunity for you to build that thick skin and just ignore this shit. And I guess the only advice I'll leave them with is don't celebrate the use of the word yourself, because then what moral judgment are you making that this person can say a word but you cannot say it? If it's a derogatory word, nobody should be saying it. Just let it go, man. Find another word to identify yourselves. Okay, you got so many terms. You got black, you got black American, you got African American, you have FBA. You got enough names to identify yourself. You have ninja. Take any of the names. Leave the other one alone, man. and move on from that. Because if you don't, then it's just gonna stick around, man. Can you imagine if people made a conscious effort never to use that word 20 years ago, it would have just died. It would have just died. But we use it in the music. It's in the music. It's in the rap. It's in how we address one another. It's part of the conversation. It's some people's lingua, like that. They can't even go a whole sentence without saying it. And at some point, you have to like, hey, we got to take responsibility for some of the words that we use and how we normalize these things, because normalization is what creates people like this. Now, is him saying the N word automatically assume that he's racist? He could just be race baited, but he might not necessarily be racist, right? Because I heard a girl said he had sexual relationships with him, and that was a black girl. So all this internet space is full of a bunch of sick people, man, that all they need to do is create things like this to be able to monetize it. But I think what he chose to monetize is not monetizable, because the monetization comes from ads. And no corporation wants to pay ads for some bullshit like this. Like, which company wants to be blasted? Even Rambo doesn't want his ass. Like, that's how bad this guy is down. Rambo doesn't want his ass. If you can't go on Rambo, then you have no chance. And like I said, very soon platforms like AWS that host these servers, this cloud-based service and storage buckets, will end up just not platforming his server, and that's it. There will be he's just gonna be irrelevant, So just leave it alone. I'm sure the authorities are looking at him and all kinds of stuff. But it's still free speech, man. When it comes to free speech, I have no guardrails. It is what it is. It sucks. But I think we're giving him so much attention than he deserves. This is a moron, right? And that's just all I got to say about it, man. You guys shouldn't be watching a million videos about it, because all of it is so repetitive. I haven't seen anything that is like new, and it's not even entertaining, and he's not entertaining. So like, why? Like, what is the point in watching people like that? I think people should just move on from it, man. There's better entertainment on YouTube than to watch this dude that just walks around and says the N-word at will, says ridiculous things. And the reason he's able to say, oh, this guy is chimping out, is because some black folks are approaching him and they're doing bullshit. They're doing exactly the things that he needs for his content. Just ignore him. Leave him alone. Ignore him. And this shit will go away, man. Anyway, that's all I got for you tonight. I got to go to bed, get myself ready for work tomorrow. Y'all have a great night. I don't know if I'll make it tomorrow, but if I find some time, I'll put something on the schedule for us. Y'all have a great night. Thanks for chiming in. Who do I have today? I have great spectator. Salute to you, bro. Sagat, salute. Who else is in the chat? Oh, man, you guys we're going at it, huh? Nanzabas is in the chat. Salute to you. And yep, thanks for being here. Yeah, it's been a while, man. I'm going to listen to the playback just to make sure all my stuff is set up the way it's supposed to be. And y'all have a great night.